Good morning, everyone, and welcome to my regular update from our nation's capital. Got a couple items at the top, and then I'll be happy to take your questions. What a wild week it's been in terms of the Epstein files. We have not seen the Trump administration spend more capital and try to delay, defer, and default on this issue in a way that, makes all of us say, what's in these files? Why is the Trump administration so paranoid? Obviously, at the end of the day, Trump threw in the towel, and it passed virtually unanimously in the House, and it did pass unanimously in the Senate. We'll have 30 days to get a look at these files, but this is, let's look back as well. I mean, Ghislaine Maxwell, the convicted sex offender who was part of this scheme, the Justice Department sent their second top lawyer to interview her, and then she suddenly got moved to a cushy place where she has the kind of privileges that no other convicted sex offender receives. So there are so many questions that the Epstein files raise. We'll all be anxious to see. I am concerned about funny business being pulled by the administration in Trump's effort to now say he's going to investigate Democrats, to use as an excuse why some of the files can't be released. The truth is, the American people need and want to see these files. And it's important for the victims to have their moment of acknowledging what happened and people being held accountable. And again, the big question is, why has Donald Trump tried so mightily to have these files kept secret when the American people deserve and need to know? And we will figure out one way or the other to make sure, even if the Justice Department puts some smoke screens out there, that these files need to be released. The sooner the better. Later today, I'm going to go to the floor of the Senate and raise concerns again about the undermining of the independence of our intelligence community. I went to the floor in September, talked about some of the early actions, particularly by the Director of National Intelligence, where she let classified information out in terms of identities of people who were undercover, where we recited all of the craziness of Laura Loomer, this crazy right-wing blogger who seems to have huge influence over Secretary Hegseth and Director Gabbard. Today I'll be focusing more on the undermining of the independence of the FBI, where a number of senior members, parts of leadership have been fired. I think the critical response team, they fired 3 heads of that department over the last 3 months. One appears to be fired because Kash Patel was embarrassed by the fact that word got out that he was flying his girlfriend around on a government plane. And somehow this gentleman, Mr. Palmer, seemed to be collateral damage. I'm going to talk about the fact that, upwards in some communities, up to 45% of the FBI agents who should be working on sex trafficking crimes, counterterrorism, cyber, have all been put on an immigration detail, which is a complete waste of their resources and talents, and they leave these cases open. The fact that we still don't have a new head of the NSA, we don't have a new head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, because those generals got pushed out, because we don't know for sure, but in one case it feels like the Defense Intelligence Agency wasn't willing to corrupt their product to meet the president's goals. I'm going to point out as well that the election security team that was set up by President Trump in his first term that made the 2020 election so safe has been completely been dismantled. And CISA, the cybersecurity agency, has had about 1/3 of its personnel fired. All these items together, it leads to an America that is dramatically less safe. And people need to understand there is a reason why the intelligence community's job is to speak truth to power. to tell policymakers the truth, even if they don't want to hear it. But that is being gravely undermined. And as we, maybe the best example of that as well is the fact that we are now seeing our allies, including the British, who are indicating they're not willing to share as much intelligence with us because some of the intelligence leaders have been so sloppy on keeping classified information classified. So Epstein and the intelligence community are two areas. We've also are continuing to work on the crypto legislation and a number of other items. Obviously want to keep the focus on healthcare as well. But lots going on as we go into Thanksgiving week. With that, Valeria, why don't I turn it over to you and I'll start taking questions.
Senator, the first question is from Rebecca with WJLA.
Hi, good morning. Senator, in the coming days, and even yesterday too, we've had two DC-centric House bills that are going to be making their way to the Senate, and there are more bills that will be headed to you all for a final vote. Do you have any thoughts on...
Rebecca, could you... Rebecca, I'm sorry. I didn't understand what you said. What kind of bills are passing through the House?
Yes, DC-centric bills. So they have to do with court systems in DC. They have to do with police reforms, changing some police reforms that were made in recent years, very specific to DC. And so my question is whether you feel Congress should be taking this kind of role in DC's governance.
Listen, I think Congress should not try to micromanage DC governance. I think some of these bills are, I have not studied these two, but I imagine they're the kind of gotcha bills to try to embarrass DC. I still think it's pretty remarkable that the president would rather send in troops than try to provide DC the $1 billion that the House took away from it. That could have been used for increased police presence and hiring of long-term law enforcement officers in the district. So while I've not seen these two particular pieces of legislation, I'm sure they are politically motivated in an attempt to try to, frankly, embarrass DC. And I think we could and should and must do better.
Senator, the next question is from Mitchell Miller with WTOP.
Hi, Senator. Thanks, as always, for joining us. Question about the payout possible in connection with senators related to January 6th and the review of phone records. As you know, the House voted last night to repeal a measure that would allow senators to sue the government for at least $500,000. I wanted to get your thoughts on what you think about that measure.
I'm glad to see that the House acted. I think the Senate should act as well. Create a special slush fund for senators, and only a particularly few senators seems to make no sense. It's one of the reasons why the American people rightfully get so angry. And the fact that it was passed unanimous in the House, this is, as Mitchell, as you know, this is not a House that's easy to get anything unanimous. I definitely hope that Leader Thune brings it up on the Senate floor as well, because I think it will pass overwhelmingly as well.
Senator, the next question is from Jeanette with WVIR. Jeanette, are you on the line? Okay, we're going to move on to Ryan with Alexandria Brief.
Good morning, Senator. Question about the National Science Foundation. In your June letter to GSA, you demanded some answers to 19 specific questions. Wondering if some of the questions included cost estimates, workforce impact, whether National Science Foundation was even consulted. Did GSA ever respond to that letter? And now that the National Science Foundation is staying in Alexandria but still displacing 1,600 employees, do you consider this outcome a success, or are there still unresolved concerns about the process you flagged?
I'm glad that NSF is staying in Alexandria, my hometown. I think these are extraordinary people who work at the NSF making the decisions about where the funding goes. And obviously, I strongly support the research activities of the NSF, and it is a huge economic and frankly national security mistake that this administration has cut back on research funding. In terms of whether the GSA has responded to the letter, I don't believe they have. But let me find out that specifically, and then we will follow up with you. I'll have my shop follow up with you directly, because there are still questions to be answered. And one thing that is, again, so disappointing with this second Trump administration is they frankly blow off letters from Congress, Democrats and Republicans alike, and there is a lack of seriousness in terms of how the administration views Congress's roles to ask these kind of questions. So let me find out if they've responded. I don't believe they have.
Senator, the next question, we're going to try again for Jeanette with WBIR. Okay, unless there are any last-minute questions on the line, I believe that is all the time we have for today.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone.